Welcome, good citizens of the internet. Thank you for joining another Reaper's Review. I am here, Doug Turner from Reaper's Moon Productions, with my old friend Stephen Hido, aka Kid Flick. Thank you for joining us, Stephen.
You're welcome.
We are today going to be looking at our top 10 love/romance stories. No restrictions as far as when it takes place. It could be 1920. It could be 2020. We got it wide open. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to start with my number 10.
Okay.
It is a film called Her by Spike Jonze, 2013.
That's a heartbreaker.
And that is what I'm dressed as right off the rip,
It's
number
like
10. On one hand, you know, it's a love story between this guy and his OS operating system. So it's kind of about a self-discovery. I consider that part of the love story when he's talking to his computer as discovering about himself. And at the same time, there's a parallel track where he's talking to Amy Adams' character, another girl, and you're kind of left with maybe he's going to like start a relationship with her. The operating system helped him kind of cure some things about her, help some things about himself, and now he's going to move on and have a relationship. So there's almost two kind of parallel love stories told at once, and that's why I was really fascinated by it when I first saw it. It did fall off a little bit for me because I watched it recently, and I was a little terrified. Because we've come a lot closer to it.
Absolutely.
And I was just kind of like, oh my God. When I saw this in 2013, it was just kind of a cool concept.
Sort of sweet. Now it's a horror movie.
It was like, oh my God, it's happening to everybody.
So my number 10 is, I'm not trying to be cute by putting this one on because I mean it sincerely. I feel this is a love story that works from like the meet cute in the bar to all the way to the end that, you know, breaks your heart. Monster.
Okay.
Like I feel the love story between them is as fucked up as it is, you know, it's like you kind of feel like they're the only person that the other one could probably be happy with because it's just they exist in such a fucked up world that just like that the, you know, when the camera tilts to the, you know, the right of when Richie's on the phone and you see like she's with the feds, it's like, you know, there was no other way this was going to end, but it's like it still breaks your heart because, you know, there's a version of this movie where that wouldn't have broke your heart, but I feel, you know, the way Jenkins and company made this movie, it's like you really felt the love story, and it would have been easy to miss that in the bigger picture of like, oh my God, she's shooting people. It was actually watching that movie that made me think we should do this list.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. The origin right there. Cool. My number 9 is a little film called Paddington, 2019, directed by Alex Lehman.
This bear?
No. That's Paddington.
I was like, who the fuck was loving Paddington?
That's Paddington, yeah.
I was like, I'm going with it. I'm embracing this decision.
Yeah, when that bear looks in that woman's eyes, like, ooh, the love connection.
Nice weather for the ducks.
Paddington. Paddington is a movie starring Ray Romano and Mark Duplass. It's a kind of very small, character-based, platonic buddy love story about two guys who just are really good friends, and one of them is going to die from cancer.
Gotcha.
And they just kind of... I'm not going to get too much into it. I think it's just a really well-done, simple film, but like you were saying, it to me, it just captures like the essence of a connection between two people. And obviously the one guy doesn't want his best friend to die. And like I said, the performances are great. I like Ray Romano in this so much more than I ever liked him on the show or just in general. Like even if he's a talking woolly mammoth, like in my kids' movies and stuff, like I just think he's fantastic in this role. And I really recommend it if you haven't seen it. Not Paddington the bear, Paddington.
Okay, I've never seen it, and I like Duplass a lot. I can just who's dying.
Duplass.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'll have to obviously familiarize myself with this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, my number 9 is, God, I love this movie. I almost hesitated to put this movie on because it's so new, and I'm like, if you're going to make a list of the best of, things have to have earned that spot, but I couldn't not put Shape of Water on.
Okay.
Yeah, it just, this is like how you find inspiration in the movies you love. You know, like a lot of people might have looked at Creature from the Black Lagoon and was like, okay, I could do something with this. But I don't think a lot of filmmakers would have been like, star of the movie's gonna fuck the creature. Like that takes a special kind of artist to be like, oh, is that where you're gonna take it? And it takes a really special artist to, you know, to pull it off. It takes a special person to have that, like, no, I think that's what I'm going to try, and then to actually pull it off is just amazing. I mean, any movie is, suspension of disbelief, but wow, like everything about this movie just works, even though none of it, when they have sex in the bathroom filled with water, it's like none of it makes sense, but it all works. In the realm of this movie, it all makes sense. And by the end of it, it's like, such a fairy tale that exists in its own, its own standard, its own universe that, I love movies that could have never been made except by that one person.
Sure.
And needless to say, this is that movie, yeah.
Del Toro. So for my number 8, so in the last few years, the majority of movies I do see are probably with my kids. Some of them are great films. A lot of the big money's in animation, so you get all the best writers and everything. So there's a lot of great movies. There's a lot of good love stories. I did pick one out to put on here that I saw with my kids and for a love story, and that is Wall-E. And that was 2008, directed by Andrew Stanton. I just think it's a really cute, organic love story. Pun. Organic, because they're digging and planting a lot of plants in the movie. It's a, what do they call it? A winter spring kind of romance. Wall-E is a older model robot. He's kind of a cantankerous, almost old man in a way. And he kind of falls in love with this newer model Eve, snazzy new robot with all the fixings. If you were to cast this movie, if it was just a movie with real actors and you cast them, I think it would be too creepy because it's like, that's kind of how it's set up. Like he's like the old man robot and he falls for the young lady robot. But it is a cute love story. There's a lot about the movie that I enjoy. So again, just one that I've watched with my kids for years and always enjoyed, and it made it to number 8 on my list, Wall-E.
Nice. Bold choices. I like it. My number 8. I swear to you and the audience that I have normal picks on my list.
Sure.
My number 8 is Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea. Absolutely love this movie. I love how genuine the love story and the longing feels in the movie, but how it always keeps you well off balance with its other elements. With its just tone of, just creepiness and uncertainty. And you kind of have a pretty good feeling that certain elements within the movie are not going to allow this to end well.
All right, moving on to my number 7, True Romance. 1993, Tony Scott. I don't know that the love story is what drives it as much as just all the fun cameos and just kind of all the hijinks at the end of the day. I mean, the love story's there, and I do love Slater and Arquette in their roles, and I think they kill it. And I definitely want them to hook up when she meets him at the movie theater in the beginning and everything. So I like the love story. I'm just saying I think it gets overshadowed by all the great cameos and all the characters, and Gary Oldman and Samuel L. Jackson and Brad Pitt and Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper, and it just never ends. So still on my list. May have dropped off a little bit. True Romance at number 7.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you had that one because that got cut from my list, and that was a tough cut. And I remember Tarantino was getting interviewed by somebody once, and the girl was asking him, "Do you think you'd ever do a love story?" And he said, "Well, I wrote True Romance," and she was just being very sarcastic and no, but really an actual romance. And he was like, "That movie is a romance. Alabama's getting the shit beat out of her, and she's not gonna tell because she loves him. That's a love story." Yeah. And the girl just wasn't accepting that it was a love story because people get shot in the forehead. And
love story.
It's a love story.
Yeah. That's the glue that holds it together. Yeah. Okay. All right, numero 7.
Yeah, my number 7. Not all love stories always lend themselves to having tons of atmosphere and mood in them, and this movie is practically nothing but mood and atmosphere. Melvin Van Peebles' Story of a 3-Day Pass. God, I love this movie. Obviously, the name of the movie is Story of a 3-Day Pass. So it definitely has the least amount of expectations, maybe, of any movie on my list. But man, the energy, the music, and the fact that you really feel that maybe it's not going to be the grand love story through the ages, but the fact that you really feel like these two people who find each other on this weekend, like, mean something to each other in that moment and, like, need each other in that moment. I just love the ending, because you could have, like, set the ending up with, like, with, like, with a certain amount of hope, and he doesn't do that. It's just like, nope, it was 3 days. So I love this movie.
Nice. My number 6, Phantom Thread.
Nice.
2017,
Nice.
Paul Thomas Anderson. I love Paul Thomas Anderson movies. This is one of those ones that people could maybe argue that it's not a love story, but bullshit.
Yeah.
It is. Even at the agreement that they kind of come to at the end is like the most fucked up thing.
Yeah.
Like he's like, okay, you can just poison me with mushrooms once in a while, and I'll just like almost die, and like we'll cuddle each other, and everything's gonna get along.
It
fine.
works for them. Yeah, it works for those two people.
Yeah, and I don't even saying that like sounds like I'm reducing the movie because it's so much more than that. Like when you factor in the performances and everything about it, it's just a phenomenally done film.
My number 6, classic as they get. You can argue that the greatest loves aren't calculated by how happy they make us, but how miserable they make us. And Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo is such a good example of that. Yeah, I mean, there's been books written about this movie, so what the hell are we supposed to say about it here? That's new. It's Vertigo. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a movie that shows the after effects of grief, often misplaced grief, because there's certainly a sense where like you feel Scotty should probably just get over this, but doesn't work that way sometimes. And this, whatever he experienced with that woman has altered his life in a way that he's never going to get back from. And yeah, just such a gorgeous movie to look at. So a movie you can watch 60 times and kind of take away something different every time. It's Vertigo, but yeah, definitely has to be on my list. It was one of those movies where I thought like, wait, Vertigo, should I put that on the list? But then I was like, well, yeah, of course.
Got to do it.
Moving
on to my number 5, Rust and Bone, Jacques Audiard.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, saw it a few years ago and liked it, and watched it more recently again, and it kind of crept up my list a little bit. I think what appeals to me is with this one, it's one of those ones where when I start watching it, I don't feel like you're watching a love story and like these people are going to hook up.
Yeah.
Like it's just about this dude who's just kind of like a street fighter scrapping by, like trying to take care of his son, and then runs into a lady who had just been kind of through a tragic accident, and their bond forms. It takes a while, and it's one that not right until really at the end does his character kind of change enough where their relationship is going to work. Yeah. Otherwise, throughout, he's just kind of like the same guy. Like, yeah, like you want to just like have sex because you haven't had it since your accident. Like, yeah, I'm standing here. So it takes, again, the characters a while to come around, but I really love the way it ends. It's got a strong ending. And again, it just crept up my list a little bit. Rust and Bone.
Number 5. Okay.
Number 5.
Okay. I'm going to read you a quote by John Cassavetes. We're all just reporters, and this movie is not newsworthy, really. It's not Watergate. It's not a war. It's a man and a woman relationship, which is always the most interesting to me. A lot of movies we're talking about today are about falling in love or falling out of love. This is a movie about neither of those. It's a movie about being in love and how difficult that can be. Woman Under the Influence, It's like, again, this is one that might not seem on the surface as like the most romantic film, but when Falk tells Roland, fuck those people, just be who you are. Boom. I'm crying every time. So yeah, legend of a movie, legend of two performances.
What year was that one?
74.
74. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say young Peter Falk, but I don't really think there's ever been a young Peter Falk. He just was kind of birthed into the world in his 50s or whatever. But that's one I need to revisit at some point. It's been quite a few years.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. My number 4. This is kind of the first time I became aware of a love story in a film. This is Last of the Mohicans, 1992, Michael Mann.
Nice.
This was a movie I, at the age of 11 or whatever, of course I just fell in love with it because it's full of action, and fight scenes and all this cool stuff. But then I became, I shouldn't say aware of a love story, I accepted the fact that there's a love story. So that is number 4, Last of the Mohicans.
Okay, wow. Daniel Day-Lewis, what a romantic motherfucker. Yeah. Wow. Cool. My number 4. I wish this movie could have been higher, but my top 3 were just kind of semi-carved in stone. But God, I love this movie. It's a beautiful ode to, being yourself and, not letting the world come to you as opposed to you adapting to the world. They might be giants. George C. Scott as, a man who's suffering from grief by believing that he's Sherlock Holmes, and he meets a psychiatrist named Dr. Watson, and they go on a wacky journey and they fall in love. And that sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, but man, does it work. Leads are perfect. God, the leads are perfect.
For number 3, I have a prop. This is a toy of my son's from The Princess Bride.
Nice.
1987.
Wow, nice.
Rob Reiner. This was one I grew up with this film in my family, and I passed it on to my kids. And I always think, like, when I go back and watch it, like, okay, it's not going to hold up, and I'm not going to care about the story. Nope, it always holds up. Doesn't matter when. Doesn't matter if it's ridiculous or messy. It's all perfect. It's all exactly how it should be. As a kid, I couldn't understand half of what they were saying in the movie, largely in part of Andre the Giant. God love him. Rest in peace. And as an adult, I kind of figured out what they were saying throughout, and it's all great. It's all quick comedy. It's all sharp writing.
William Goldman wasn't fucking around with that one.
Yeah. And the love story, even though the love story is very much just like, this is a love story, like they're making out in the first few seconds, like that's kind of part of the charm and the joke.
It's almost like a parody of itself.
And you've got, speaking of Peter Falk, you've got Peter Falk and the young fellow from...
Savage?
Yes, Savage, Peter Falk and Savage. Yeah. So the kind of forced love story is part of the parody, part of the fun, part of the joke, part of the ride. So again, one I grew up watching, quoting, loving, passed on to my kids. This is my son's Inigo Montoya, after he's been bloodied up here by the Six-Finger Man a little bit.
Nice.
Princess Bride at number 3.
Cool. There are some movies that you gotta... that have such an impact on you, but you don't really want to watch them all the time, just because watching them is like going through something, whether it's like, Martyrs or Schindler's List, movies you like, but it's like, I'm going to be careful how often I watch that movie. Annie Hall is a movie like that to me. I just find it so incredibly heartbreaking. It's just that it's like, I don't watch this movie that much. I've probably seen it like 5 times in my life. It seems like a movie I would have seen 20 times.
I would have thought so.
Yeah. But it's just, that ending just, it just tears me down. And I'm almost like sad for the rest of the day. I don't think a relationship has ever been more realistically wrought and just like, brought to fruition and then brought to its ending in just like that gut punch way. I mean, man, that last shot, the last shot of the actual movie before it cuts back to him through the window when he's just standing there alone. Kills me every time. But I mean, legend. I mean, every frame, every line, it's perfect.
Going on to number 2 for me. McCabe and Miss Miller, 1971.
Wow, nice.
Robert Altman. This one changed the way I look at Westerns, and it just came at a time where my brother Mike and I were running through spaghetti Westerns. So we're kind of just running the gauntlet of, the sequences that take 10 minutes long, and you just hear all the crickets, and like, is he going to shoot? No, he's not going to shoot. Like, he's going to stand there more. Nothing against those movies, but to go from that all of a sudden into this kind of very realistic, like they just built a set and they're all just going to live on the set kind of feel to the movie. And with a really scaled back love story. And it's one of those ones, it's like, is it even a love story? I mean, it is.
But because when you mentioned it, I was like, okay, yeah.
It is, but it's like, if someone really wanted to argue with me that like she doesn't even give a fuck about McCabe and like it's not, but it's still there. It's still at the core. You still don't want what happens to them to happen. You want them to kind of figure things out. Yeah, really enjoy the movie McCabe and Miss Miller.
Wow, nice. Okay. Yeah, that surprised me, but I love it. Okay. My number 2. It wasn't a question of, was a Humphrey Bogart going to be on my list. It was just a matter of which Humphrey Bogart was going to be on my list.
Bogey sighting.
Yeah. So it's like, is it Casablanca? That was like a tough one to not do because it's, it sounds like obvious, but fuck that, ending kills me every time. Was it going to be African Queen? I love that movie, but I went with To Have and Have Not. Probably the love story in this movie is probably less of the narrative than it is in the other 2 movies I just mentioned, but have 2 people ever just like seared to the screen with passion, as they might have said in an old cheesy trailer.
You're good. You're awful good.
This was the movie they met on, and man, like,
Yeah, I was going to say that him and Bacall. That was the first. Okay.
yeah, this is what they met on.
Okay.
And yeah, it just like, man, the two of them just, like I said, you could almost argue the love story doesn't even have that much to do. Like, you almost could have rewritten the screenplay and just cut the love story out. And it's like, yeah, I guess you could have, but it certainly wouldn't be this movie, and it wouldn't,
Right. And we have them. From
stand on the mountain like it does. Yeah.
Okay. Down to number one. My number one. A love story with Ryan Gosling. Everybody knows what it is. Drive.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sorry if you bought the false lead in.
Wow.
I'm just not going to do that. It's just who I am. You may even want to argue that Drive's not a love story. Bullshit.
Okay.
It's a love story at the core. Minimal dialogue. I love the soundtrack. I love the style of the movie. I love the feel. I love the mood. The fact that there's violence, but it's not just a splatterfest. And then, like I said, if you strip it all away, there is a love story at its core, and it is my number one love story, Drive.
Nice. Okay. My number one, yeah. Nobody has ever been more, empathetic on screen than Jack Lemmon. Nobody has ever been more adorable on screen than Shirley MacLaine. Obviously nobody could, write human beings and, characters and situations that are as humorous and heartbreaking as Billy Wilder. Again, what do I say about it? It's The Apartment. Nobody could mix like kind of that cynicism and the pathos like Wilder. Usually I don't even, as you can probably tell by some of my selections, I almost prefer the non-happy ending to love stories, but this one gets me every time, and I wouldn't want this story with these people to end any other way. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Number one, The Apartment. That wraps up our top 10 love story / romance movies of all time. Steve, that was good. I'm glad you talked me into doing it. Or you suggested it and I said okay, and then I was going to cancel, and then I was like, nah, let's just do it. And I'm glad we did.
You did one, yeah.
Yeah, we got through it.
Paddington the bear, who knew? I'm an idiot, sorry.
No, it's all right. Again, thank you for joining us. Reaper's Reviews. Check out the Reaper's Moon Production channel for more content like this, more reviews and fun stuff. Thank you, Steve and Hido, for joining and helping out.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Doug Turner signing off until next time.